After that, he unleashes a tremendous amount of force and suddenly charges straight towards Xinyun like a wind. When Nodi, his son, and Jinwoo realized how fast Changsu was, they all let out audible gasps and widened their eyes in shock. Within the blink of an eye, Changsu had arrived in front of Xinyun and was employing his art of moon-seizing heavenly net. However, Xinyun was unfazed as he waited for his adversary to launch an assault, but Changsu was flourishing his dozens of blades, and there was no way Xinyun could avoid them. He also planned to begin by tearing Xinyun's mouth apart before moving on to the rest of his body. When he realized that Xinyun had evaded his heavenly net, however, his eyes opened and he was startled. Even more impressive is the fact that he is able to parry every blow that is directed his way. However, it was difficult for him to do so, which is why he unleashed another huge energy and attacked Xinyun, but the latter was just as quick as he is. They engage in combat with one another, attacking and counter-attacking one another. On the other hand, Xinyun observed that Changsu moved extremely slowly, and that his sword technique was one that relied heavily on water kai for its foundation. He believed that he would be at a disadvantage if he confronted him with only his 12 swords of the thundercloud, each of which corresponds to a different type of metal. And if that turns out to be the case, he will confront Changsu with the absolute coldness that he has acquired from the divine glacier water. After that, he carried out his threat against Changsu, who widened his eyes in response to the fact that every slice that Xinyun made was only an inch away from his face. However, as Xinyun used his absolute coldness together with his 12-sword thundercloud skill, Changsu was unable to avoid it, and it struck him in the body, causing him to scream out in pain as it did so. When Akchil and Songhak saw it, their mouths fell open in shock, and they clenched their teeth together in fear. While this was going on, Nodi, his son, and Jinwoo furrowed their brows, and beads of perspiration began to form on their faces. This was because they couldn't believe how powerful Xinyun was, and the fact that he seemed to have defeated Changsu without inflicting any damage on him. On the other hand, Changsu was writhing in agony as his blood flowed freely throughout his body. He couldn't believe that he had been defeated by a simple soldier without a name, and this infuriated him to no end. On the other hand, the status window appeared and declared that the 12 swords of the thundercloud and the chilling kai of the heavenly glacial water had developed. It also stated that his understanding in martial arts with the harmony of the 12 swords of the thundercloud had reached its full potential. The level of expertise possessed by the 12 sword of thunderclouds has improved. Its grade has been updated, and it has become an ascended item that is capable of evolving. However, Xinyun observed that from the looks of it, it seems as though Changsu was almost cut in two, and that he shall provide him a unique act of charity so that he commands them to live and get out of his sight in an instant. Changsu was having trouble standing up as Xinyun was speaking. On the other hand, Changsu, together with Akchil and Songhak, gritted their teeth and furrowed their brows because of the anger that they felt towards Xinyun. Changsu believed that Xinyun was just a spoiled brat. There was no way that he could have attained such a transcendent level. And because he believed that Xinyun was the head of a monster, he intended to chop him down and sever his neck. Then, he unleashes another enormous energy throughout his entire body. Moreover, Xinyun became aware of the energy that was being expelled from Changsu's body. He added that if that was the latter's wish, then he should reply accordingly and urge his opponent to come since he will be the one to slice his neck instead. After that, Changsu lets out a burst of energy and suddenly moves closer to Xinyun. But before they could face one another, they were both startled when they observed an arrow quickly approaching them and was about to strike them, and because of this, they both took a step back in order to escape being hit by the arrow. When Xinyun saw the arrow, he was confused. Changsu's eyes widened in surprise when he realized that the arrow was the Dang clan's lightning arrow. The Dang clan's lightning arrow is an artifact that serves as a signaling device, indicating when the Sichuan Dang clan would declare war on their enemies. To put it another way, when Dang's lightning arrow appears, it indicates that the fight is coming to a conclusion. When Changsu turned to see where the arrow came from, he noticed with widening eyes what appeared to be members of the Dang clan standing nearby. However, he was perplexed since the only people he saw were Marluk, Rin, Simagun, and Hwang No, and he was not familiar with their appearance, nor are any of them members of the Sichuan Dang clan. Changsu was informed by Xinyun that the individuals in question are part of the Straight Cloud faction after Xinyun observed that Changsu was unfamiliar with the individuals in question. However, Changsu thought that they must be some idiots of the Bikun clan based on their looks. However, he asked himself how Rin got the lightning arrow of Dang, which is why he told Rin that she must not know that the heavens are high and the lands are thick, and it seems that she can fool him by her trash imitation of the arrow. After that, he issues an order for Ah Rin to disclose her true identity. Song Hak also mentioned that the Dang clan's lightning arrow is a secret weapon that only members of the Dang clan's direct bloodline are allowed to use. And if that's the case, Chung Su interrupted Song Hak in the middle of his sentence and stated that he was well aware of that because he has seen his fair share of members of the Dang clan. But he has never met Ah Rin and Sima Gun before. On the other hand, both Sima Gun and Ah Rin are at a loss for words because Chung Su could not recognize them because they were both hiding their identities behind masks. In order for Chung Su to demonstrate that Ah Rin was a member of the Dang clan, he needed Ah Rin to take off his mask, so Ah Rin nudged Sima Gun, and then both of them took off their masks at the same time. When everyone saw the genuine face of Ah Rin and Sima Gun, they all dropped their jars in amazement and their eyes widened. They also stated that the woman was Dang Ha Rin, the vice-clan leader of the Sichuan Dang clan. On the other hand, Xin Woon wasn't prepared for Ah Rin and Sima Gun to reveal their genuine identities. He believed that the two would wait a little longer before doing so, and he was surprised that they did so in front of everyone, including Chung Su. The latter, on the other hand, trembled as his eyes widened in shock when he saw Ha Rin, and he thought to himself, of all the places, why is Ha Rin there? In addition, Ha Rin and Zhuge Gun abruptly pay respect to the elder that is in front of them and say that it looks that in their endeavor to stop the conflict, they have mistakenly insulted the senior. Both of them said their names were Dang Ha Rin of the Sichuan Dang clan and Zhuge Gun of the Zhuge clan when they introduced themselves. In addition to this, Ha Rin informed them that they are currently operating as part of the Flying Hawk Squad in order to complete the objective that they have been given. As a result, they would like to make a request for their assistance in conducting the investigation that is necessary for their task. Afterwards, because of the rage that was welling up inside of him, Chung Su furrowed his forehead and gritted his teeth. In the beginning, it was the Dang clan, then it was the Zhuge clan, and now he discovered that they were also members of the Flying Hawk Squad. He believed that the situation had grown quite precarious as a result of these developments. Even if he holds a rank that is higher than that of the Flying Hawk Squad, the Ha Rin and the Zhuge are still considered to be children of the 7 clans, especially at this time when the power battle between the 10 sects and the 7 clans is at an all-time high. If Ha Rin and Zhuge find fault in him for acting for his own personal advantage, the entirety of the Mount Huang sect will be in difficulty, and it may even have a bad impact on the 10 sects as a whole. Therefore, he must always make an effort to conceal himself. Afterwards, Chung Su revealed to them that he had no idea that the Dang clan would look down on him and the Mount Huang sect to such an extreme degree. He then added that he was present at the scene because Xin Woon was thought to be the head of a demon. He did this while pointing towards Xin Woon, and the latter's power is identical to that of a demonic head, and he had a great deal of justification for traveling all the way to the Beacon clan. Chung Su stated that the Flying Hawk Squad suspected him to be unreasonable, and that he went to that location without a proper reason. In response, Ha Rin told him that she did not intend to belittle the leader of the Mount Huang sect. However, all she was trying to do was safeguard the assistant who has been covertly working with the Flying Hawk Squad. And Xin Woon is also the benefactor to whom the Dang clan owes a great deal of gratitude. When Ha Rin revealed that Xin Woon was a benefactor to the Dang clan in addition to being an assistant, Chung Su was astonished. It appeared as though he was at a loss for what to do since he furrowed his brow, and a bead of sweat started to form on his face. Because injuring the benefactor of the Dang clan represents a challenge to the Dang clan, and because going up against them will never be to the Mount Huang sect's advantage, he believed that the situation had grown extremely complicated. He was enraged because the outcome of a conflict between the depleted Mount Huang sect and the Sichuan Dang clan, which was vying for a higher place even among the 7 clans, would be precisely as he had predicted. However, Chung Su continues to insist that Xin Woon be punished and has stated that despite the fact that Xin Woon may be a benefactor of the Dang clan, the chance that he is a demonic head still exists, and if he does not punish Xin Woon and set an example for others, there is no telling what might happen in the future. Chung Su still insists that Xin Woon be punished. Then, he inquires as to whether or not she is able to accept responsibility for what has occurred. In response, Ha Rin stated that certainly she would do so. She also stated, as she mentioned before, that the clan leader of the Beacon Commission clan is a benefactor and assistant of the Sichuan Dang clan, and that, contrary to what she believes, Xin Woon is not a demonic head. She appeals to Chung Su to put an end to the conflict by stating that it appears that the incident was the result of a misunderstanding. After all, she is familiar with the numerous accounts that describe how generous and open-minded Chung Su is. Furthermore, Chung Su does not have any other options available to him. Continuing to do so would put his life in jeopardy, and he has no reason to put his reputation on the line for someone as insignificant as Chil. Chung Su chose to state that there is a misunderstanding between them, and is requested from the member of the same union, Ha Rin from the Dang clan. He excused himself. This was done despite the fact that he was shivering due to the certainty that he would be embarrassed. After that, Chung Su makes his way out of the room and gives his subordinates orders to draw their swords so that they can return to their posts. On the other hand, Chil was so enraged that he demanded to know more about the leader of the Mount Huang sect's plan for revenge. However, he was forced to stop mid-sentence as his eyes widened when he saw how angry Chung Su was. Chil then gave Chung Su an order to keep quiet before cutting off the man's remaining arm with his own hands. Because he has no other option, Chil is forced to maintain his quiet. When the members of the Mount Huang sect finally leave their location, No Di, along with his son and Jinu, let out a sigh of relief. The Beacon clan had been successful. Thus all of their guards were rejoicing because their adversary had been forced to retreat. After then, Xin Wun gave the order to everyone to find those who were injured and start putting their situation in order as soon as possible. On the other hand, Juge and Ha Rin were both problematic due to the fact that they had already revealed to everyone, especially Xin Wun, who they really are. It is now over for them because they were supposed to be entirely hidden, but everything went wrong. But Juge Gun noted that their strategy worked somehow. Both of them were taken aback when Xin Wun stepped towards them, and he expressed his appreciation for their assistance, stating that they were able to stop more loss of life. On the other hand, it would appear that they have a lot of things to discuss as well as a lot of things to explain. Don't you agree? He added. Both Ha Rin and Juge were present within the room and waiting for their clan leader to make his statement. They were all seated, but nobody spoke throughout that time. However, the latter appears irritable since he is having a difficult time waiting for Xin Wun to speak because it had been 10 minutes since he had heard anything from Xin Wun, and he was uncertain as to whether or not he was angry with them. On the other hand, Xin Wun eventually spoke out and suggested that they should avoid reintroducing themselves to one another. After all, he already heard their true identity a moment ago. Afterwards, the quick bowing of Ha Rin was followed by an apology for the late disclosure of their identities. Because Xin Wun has been aware of the two people's identities for some time, he made it abundantly plain to them that there is no need for them to apologize for revealing themselves to him. Juge's abrupt outburst of crying coincided with Ha Rin's apparent embarrassment at the notion that they were frequently talking about their clan leader in their mind. Xin Wun reveals to them that he assumed they were aware of what was going on and that he was aware of their genuine identities on the day that they took the exam. He also reveals that he knew who they really were. Ha Rin was astounded, and she inquired of Xin Wun how he came to that conclusion. In response, Xin Wun stated that he was blessed with good eyesight from birth. However, Ha Rin did not trust him because a person with average inner Kai would not be able to recognize them in their disguise. And in the fight against Do Nam Gang and Master Chung Su, he demonstrated that he was not overpowered by either of his opponents, and she had the impression that Xin Wun was everything but a typical person. However, Xin Wun informed them that he wanted to set aside the matter of their true identities and that he wanted to ask them a question instead. He claimed that even in the event that neither of them had intervened, he would have taken matters into his own hands and resolved it. He asks them why they intervened at that point, going so far as to reveal their names. Is it to protect their master Chung Su? Or is their aim to put him in debt? Or is there any other reason? In response, Ha Rin said that she does not care in the slightest about the life of the hypocrite who is blinded by wealth, and that she does not even give it a second thought. In addition, she doesn't have any intention of indebting the clan leader. Instead, it would be better for an idiot like Master Chung Su to be dead for the benefit of the martial world. And she did it for the sake of their clan leader, Xin Wun. The latter appears perplexed because he finds it hard to believe that Ha Rin actually did step in to save him during his fight with Chung Su. It was told to Xin Wun by Ha Rin that if she hadn't intervened in the struggle, he would have undoubtedly severed Chung Su's neck. It's possible that he had intended to eliminate all of the masters of the Mount Huang cult, but this is pure supposition on Ha Rin's part. Xin Wun conceded, however, that she was true, and that he intended to get rid of each and every one of them. On the other hand, Juge exhibited signs of surprise, and he was under the impression that Xin Wun's true intention was to eliminate each and every teacher on Mount Huang. This indicates that he was prepared to wage war against one of the 10 different sects. In addition, Xin Wun inquired to them as to whether or not he was acting in an irresponsible manner. In response, Ha Rin told him that although it was true that Chung Su was an unredeemable piece of trash, the fact that he has an important position in the Union, if Shin Woon had actually been successful in killing him, then even the Dang clan would not have been able to prevent the Union from moving forward with their plans. It is inevitable that it would result in violence, during which tens or perhaps hundreds of lives will be lost. As a result, he will never be in a position that is beneficial to him, which is why they choose to intervene. On the other hand, Kang felt convinced that Ha Rin was correct in her assessment that going against the Union Muram at that particular juncture was not the best course of action. After all, in the not-too-distant future, the population of the Muram Union will experience a natural attrition. After learning the motivation behind their actions, he had a few more inquiries for them. Ask anything. Utter Ha Rin. Afterwards, Shin Woon questioned why they went to such lengths to defend him, even claiming that he was a kind benefactor to the Dang clan all of a sudden. In answer to this, Ha Rin stated that he was a genuine benefactor since, if it weren't for Shin Woon, they would have perished either in the hidden cave of all things or at the lair of Tianmu. In addition, Kang had the stunning realization that the idea that members of the Dang clan never forget favors or a fight even when their lives are in jeopardy wasn't simply a rumor at all. Afterwards, Kang presses them for information regarding the reasons behind their infiltration of the Beacon Commission clan. Both Shuj and Ha Rin were visibly embarrassed as they abruptly bowed their heads and began to sweat. According to Ha Rin, he wants to be honest with their clan leader, which is why she told Shin Woon that he is being accused as being the perpetrator behind the serial disappearances that are now taking place in Zhejiang. Shuj bursts out laughing as he explains that after what happened that day, he was no longer a suspect because they both proved that he was not. But all of a sudden, Kang began to suspect that the two were looking for remnants of the blood sect. When the Muram Union finally became aware of the succession of mysterious disappearances, it was too late. Everything had already come to a halt, and the individuals who were tugging the strings were never discovered. Afterwards, Kang shared his third inquiry with them and inquired as to the reason why he was no longer being suspected. Ha Rin was going to say something about Per, but Juge was holding a persimmon, and he guessed that Ha Rin intended to talk about persimmons. As a consequence, Ha Rin became enraged, and he yelled at him, stating that he was not talking about persimmons, but rather perceptual intuition. Afterwards, Shin Woon was informed by Ha Rin about what had happened within the cave, that Shin Woon was told that in order to protect his subordinates, he had coated himself in black death roaches, jumped into the heavenly glacial water, and even engaged in a duel to the death with an elder from the Mount Huang sect. It was only her gut feeling, but she thought someone like that couldn't possibly be the one responsible for the crime. Nevertheless, if what she intuited to be true turns out to be the case, the skills of the clan leader was absolutely remarkable. Shin Woon, rather than being awful to them, asked them if they expected him to appreciate them for their help, and because the responses they provided to all of his queries were satisfactory, he ought to tell them a story that will be to their advantage. Both Ha Rin and Juge were curious about the account that their clan had related to them. Afterward, Shin Woon revealed to them that he has been following the serial disappearance case that the two of them are currently looking into long before they had started doing so. Both Ha Rin and Juge displayed signs of astonishment by opening both of their eyes wider. They couldn't believe their clan leader had followed the case, nor could they understand why he had. Because of this, Shin Woon told them that Jianmaiho and Yu Jin Sang were heavily connected with the case, and that after a lengthy investigation, he was just about to figure out who the perpetrator was at that point. In addition to this, Ha Rin was pleading with their clan leader to reveal all of the information he had to them. In addition, Shin Woon said that the moment they hear the truth, they won't be able to turn back anymore. Are you confident you won't regret it? Asked Shin Woon. They were both surprised when their clan leader told them everything he knew. Meanwhile, under the light of the moon, a large group of individuals could be seen proceeding forward while draped in black cloaks and pushing a cart. An arm abruptly falling to the ground lends credence to the theory that the wagon is transporting a dead body. When two of the guys turned their gaze back behind them, they saw an arm that had been severed fall to the ground. One of the other men in the group picked up the severed arm and threw it in the wagon. The three men who seemed to be in charge of the situation noticed what had taken place. After that, the bodies of three guys were discovered, and it appears that they were one of those masked men who were pushing a cart. And it appears that two of the individuals pulling in that cart are responsible for the killings because they smile as if they'd done some heavy work. Within the cave, a guy in authority gave instructions to his companions, telling them to wait in a certain location until the head's ritual was finished. In addition to this, he orders them to pull the cart and follow after him. Following that, the people who were wearing cloaks said that they were finally able to recover their breath because everyone had been working so hard, even though it was late in the night. They see 3 people standing in front of them wearing the same cloak as them, but the 2 assume that those people are just their colleagues because one of them heard that they will receive some assistance from other squads due to a lack of manpower, so they reason that those people must be their allies. On the other hand, a man with no hair approached the 3 individuals and suggested that they sit down for a while instead of standing around in that manner. He went so far as to give the 3 of them a bottle of drinks, but when they declined, the bald man burst out laughing and believed that the 3 people were anxious because they hadn't accepted his offer of the bottle of drinks. He also told the 3 individuals that they are experiencing a great deal of difficulty due to the head of a playful dragon, and that he has been working non-stop throughout the entire day without taking a break. One of the 3 people asks the bald man a question about the location of the lone exit in the cave while he was drinking liquor from the bottle. In response, the bald man stated that there is only one exit to the cave, and he then inquired about the identities of the other 3 individuals. The statement that they were messengers of the underworld was relayed to the man with the bald head by one of the 3 individuals, who had a smirk on his face. The bald man's eyes widened, and his lower jaw fell as well. When he opened his mouth to say something, one of the other 3 people suddenly struck him. Other persons who were dressed in a cloak were taken aback when they learned of the unexpected death of their companions. The leader removed his cloak, and it was revealed that he was Xinyun. The individuals who were hiding behind the cloak were perplexed and demanded to know from Xinyun who they were and whether or not they could reveal their identities. Xinyun, on the other hand, did not disclose to them his name or even the names of his subordinates. Rather, he told them that they are the messengers of the underworld. One of the men wearing cloaks, who seemed to be the leader, can be heard yelling at his other comrades, telling them they need to be ready for an attack. One of them was going to blow the horn that signals a surprise assault, but before he could blow it, one of the 3 persons already sliced his throat and collapsed in front of those men wearing cloak. Everyone was shocked to learn that the person who had slashed the throat of one of their allies was a woman, and she was Ha-Rin. And it just so happens that Juge is the 3rd person. On the other hand, Ha-Rin let out a sigh when Xinyun told her that he will have the chance to properly confirm the true power of the 7 sects. He also said that their opponents have more numbers so they don't have to leave a single survivor, inside or outside the cave. He asks Ha-Rin if she can do that alone while Juge was surprised because their clan leader seems to be letting Ha-Rin to fight alone on their numerous opponents. In addition, Ha-Rin told their clan leader that she can't get them all but she was able to kill most, and she abruptly ran towards their opponents. Those cloak men seem terrified but they prepare themselves to combat. On the other hand, Ha-Rin is quick to draw her blade and attack anyone who stands in her path. Then she utilizes her snowing poison flower to kill everyone. And as she swings her sword, a picture of blossoms emerges on the place in front of her. Xinyun had believed that he wouldn't need to be concerned about Ha-Rin since the latter seems confident in fighting alone against those numerous opponents. But he picked up on something. He neglected to take into account the fact that Jujin lacked any familiarity with martial arts, despite the fact that he was exceptionally skilled at breaking through formations. He was on the fence about whether or not he was going to assist him, who at the time was engaged in a fight with 2 adversaries and appeared to be at a loss for what to do. He probably would have passed away a long time ago if not for the extraordinary abilities of the Juge clan, specifically the heavenly predicting steps. In addition, Xinyun made the decision to assist Juge, and as a result, he raised his hand and transmitted energy to Juge. After that, Juge got perplexed when he observed that his hand was emitting a form of energy. Because of the mysterious power that he possesses, he was completely oblivious to the fact that his adversary was going to launch an assault on him. However, because of the fact that he has power, he abruptly slaps his fan on the face of his opponent, and as a consequence, his opponent falls to the ground motionless. This causes him to appear shocked and his mouth to drop. He believed that he had acted rashly when he pulled out the iron leaf fan and slapped his adversary with it. After that, he had experienced an extraordinary surge of power. He had a feeling that their clan leader was the one who had sent him the energy, so he searched the area to find Xinyun. And when he did, their clan leader was giving him a thumbs up sign. However, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of spell their clan leader had cast on him. Afterward, they all slaughtered those people wearing cloaks who were pushing a cart. When questioned by the leader of their clan if they were okay, both Ha-Rin and Juge responded that everything was well with them. But Juge suddenly draws near and questions Shin-woo about the energy that he gave because Juge appears to be happy when he suddenly feels stronger. On the other hand, Shin-woo was under the impression that he had just utilized the Silent Wave, a skill that comes with the Bat Lord title. But given that there is a possibility that Juge may not comprehend even if he explains it to him, he will just have to make something up. Therefore, he explained to Juge that it is a spell that Man Sang-ya had left behind. When Juge learned that their clan leader had gained the knowledge of Man Sang-ya in the hidden cave of all things, he was taken aback. Shin-woo, however, paid him no attention and continued walking while remarking that they can't afford to waste any time in that cave because the longer they stay, the greater the number of people who will be killed within. They make a mad dash for it as they approach the cave's exit, but they come to a halt all of a sudden as they see something in front of them. When Ha-rin finally understood what it was, she quickly put her palm over her mouth to prevent herself from screaming, and her eyes grew extremely big as a result. Juge, on the other hand, gritted his teeth and wrinkled his brow in response to what he observed. In addition, it was the head of the Earth Dragon Flowering Fire Witch, Hua. She said that her sweet meal was not yet finished, but she had some unwelcome guests. Mi was taken aback when she discovered that her dinner would be cut short due to a shortage of food while a large number of people were lying directly beneath her feet. She wanted Ha-rin, Juge, and Shin-woo to be her dinner since she thought they looked tasty, but she planned to set their necks aside and offer them to her commander instead. On the other hand, Ha-rin and Juge were getting ready for battle and were just waiting for their clan leader to give them the command, but they were astonished when Shin-woo informed them that there was no reason for them to engage in combat. Instead, the latter provides them with a task to complete. Afterwards, when Shin-woo called for her attention and inquired where those revolting vines originated from because they appear so strange, Mi was perplexed and unsure of how to reply. The clan leader also inquires as to whether or not it would be appropriate for her to cut back on those vines, and as a consequence of this, Mi becomes upset since it appears that Shin-woo devalues her vines, and as a result, she unleashes a force that causes her countless vines to suddenly assault Shin-woo, and those vines will most certainly absorb him all the way down to the marrow. Shin-woo, on the other hand, was being pursued by a large number of vines. Nevertheless, he was able to quickly evade them and use his sword to chop them. Numerous vines kept attacking him while he kept on slashing his sword. However, the leader of the clan realizes that his efforts are in vain when one of the vines that he has already cut continues to move and strikes him again. Mi explained to him that it did not matter how many vines he cut because her vines are virtually infinite in number. She makes a menacing chuckle with her face, and it appears as though she had sharp fangs just like her nails. She was intrigued to see how long Shin-woo could continue to withstand the assault. In addition, Shin-woo was attempting to sidestep every vine that was heading in his direction. He marveled at the ingenuity of those vines, reasoning that if even one of them punctured him, it would extract every last drop of blood and fluid from his body at that precise location. And if those vines persist in their assaults on him, he will soon be pushed to his breaking point. But that is too soon. He needs more time, and he has no choice but to suffer through it. On the other hand, Mi was laughing at him because Shin-woo was trying to demonstrate his sportsmanship to her and embarrassing himself in front of her. She couldn't help but wonder about Shin-woo and his degree of expertise, given that he carried himself in front of her as though he were superior, despite the fact that he dared to mock her with his relatively low level of expertise. But Mi was dull, and she lost interest in continuing to fool around with Shin-woo, so she decided she wanted to end their combat. Afterwards, Shin-woo was the target of Mi's vines as she struck them in front of his face. The clan leader widened his eyes when he saw the vines, but he quickly bent backward, but he noticed another vines on his side. That is why he quickly stood up, but it was too late because he never be able to dodge it, and as a result, the vines pierced on his body. And when Mi saw what happened, she laughed and thought that it was the end for Shin-woo and that she will devour him without leaving any trace. In spite of the fact that Shin-woo was writhing in agony from the pain caused by the vines that had been pierced on his side, he continued to stand still and endure the discomfort, and this caused Mi to be shocked, and she furrowed her brows as she did so. On the other hand, when Mi saw that something was happening to her, she looked down at her hands and was perplexed by what she saw. Her power appears to be ebbing away gradually, but she is positive that she is getting sufficient nourishment. The fact that she is able to crush people under her feet is evidence of this. When she heard something, she turned to her left and found that Ha-rin and Juge were attempting to flee along with the individuals they had kidnapped to become her food. Juge was able to see that Mi was gazing at them. As a consequence of this, he tightened his teeth and Ha-rin widened her eyes. Mi was able to figure out that they were attempting to flee. She was furious, and because of this, both of them suddenly started running while pulling the cart. Ni tries to stop them and starts to attack. Xinyun quickly prevented her from attacking Juge and Ha-Rin just as she was ready to do so. He did this since the attack was not the most essential thing at the time, and he had been waiting for the opportunity to do so. Ni became enraged when she noticed that Xinyun was using the art of the fiery yan and was releasing a massive force. The latter was also holding his swords along with her vines. On the other hand, the status window appears and stated that the extortion has a rank of S+. What belonged to the servant was also belonged to the master. The user is able to use one of the skills of the summon, and the summon with the skill extorted is unable to be summoned until the end of the skill. Furthermore, Xinyun clenched his fists around Mi's veins and informed her that he wanted to turn her into ash, but that he couldn't just burn those innocent people along with her. On the other hand, Mi was in a state of extreme fear and was pleading with Xinyun to put an end to what he was doing. She tightened her teeth and wrinkled her brows as beads of sweat began to form on her face. She couldn't help but wonder how a simple boy like him could be so skilled in the art of fiery yang, as well as who exactly he was. After that, Xinyun formed a grin on his face while releasing a tremendous amount of energy that resembled a fire. He then copied what Mi had said a while earlier, that she had become so boring and he didn't want to mess around with her anymore, because he intended to burn Mi until there was nothing left in her. Then, he brandishes his sword before suddenly charging towards me and making use of his Inferno ability, which allows him to unleash a fire that would consume me along with her vines. Mi was taken aback and filled with panic as a large amount of energy was released toward her, and her attacker slashed his swords towards her in an attempt to cut all of the veins in her body. Even her arms and legs were severed by Xinyun before he let forth a force that created an abrupt explosion. Mi ended up falling on the ground and coughing up blood as a consequence of what happened. After that, Xinyun approached her and remarked that she appears to have improved a great deal now that the unnecessary veins had been removed. Mi was enraged and even cursed at Xinyun. She was still alive despite the fact that she was missing her limbs and legs. She was so enraged that she asked Xinyun to simply kill her, but the latter assured her that he would fulfill her wish and kill her, but that he was unable to do it at this time. Instead, he lifted his palm and let out some of the energy that had been building up in it. Afterwards, when Mi witnessed the abrupt reappearance of one of her arms, she was taken aback and her eyes widened in shock. But she was horrified as her eyes widened. Then she asked the clan leader what he was doing because she saw that Xinyun brandished his swords and abruptly stuck her arms again. Xinyun appears content with what he is able to accomplish and assures me that she will heal her whenever it is convenient for him. Why don't we begin again? Utter Xinyun. On the other hand, Mi was sweating because of the fear that she felt towards Xinyun because she didn't know what he was capable of if she didn't follow him. A large number of ladies could be seen resting on the ground outside the cave, and they all appeared to be in a weakened state. Juge and Ha-Rin were successful in rescuing those women, and while they are still breathing, their conditions are extremely serious. Juge inquired of Ha-Rin concerning the availability of urgent care for them. Ha-Rin answered by saying that she needed to try, and then she laid her hands on them while attempting to heal them. However, it appears that this was not sufficient because the wound was not a basic one and she is unable to heal non-physical wounds with her power. If they continue to progress at this rate, none of them will be safe if they are not treated soon. Others were leaning against the wall or the wagon, while still others were lying down on the ground. It appears that they were having difficulty as a result of the agony that they were experiencing. Ha-Rin's eyes snap open and she stares in the direction of the cave's entrance. They had no other option except to wait for their clan leader to return, who was at that very time still engaged in combat with me. While clutching her hand, she was shaking uncontrollably. She was witnessing the unfolding of the catastrophe as it unfolded right in front of her eyes, yet she was unable to pick up on even the slightest clue the entire time. It never occurred to her that someone like her background could legitimately claim to be a part of the Order sect and the White Path. Juge and Ha-Rin were taken aback, however, when their clan head suddenly appeared before them and informed them that they had accomplished their task to successfully rescue all of the women and that they had done an excellent job doing it. When the leader of their clan emerged from the cave unscathed, they were both filled with a sense of relief. Xinyun inquires as to whether or not they have sustained any injuries. As a reaction to this, Ha-Rin felt sorry because even though they were all doing well, those other women were not. She also mentioned that she provided some rapid emergency care for them, but their wounds do not appear to be typical, and their circumstance was undoubtedly critical. But as their clan leader turned around and began reaching for something under his garments, Xinyun informed them that what she had done was sufficient, and that from that point on, they were required to leave everything to him because they had both worked so hard and were in need of rest. Then Xinyun showed them the stinger case, and Ha Rin immediately recognized it as hers because it was displayed in front of them. She had an abrupt realization that the stinger case was being used to conceal her abilities, but that it would eventually be put to use to treat those who were injured. Nevertheless, Xinyun unexpectedly kneeled on the ground and began to cure them. He took the needle out of its case and carefully inserted it into the body of each individual patient. Both his reverse cleansing and his white desires will be utilized concurrently by him. The reverse purification is stated to be at rank S+ in the status window. It neutralizes one of the damaging effects that have been inflicted on either the user or a specific target. When used on a victim that is currently being affected by the skill reverse purification, any healing-related skill that he used will have its effectiveness increased by 20%. And the effectiveness grows in tandem with the development in both the level and the mastery of the skill. However, when Xinyun pierced those noodles into the bodies of the persons whom they had saved, he noticed that the toxins in their bodies were departing, and that they were breathing normally again. It was wonderful since what he had done was sufficient for any urgent circumstances, and as a consequence, he breathed a sigh of relaxation. After that, the status window appeared once more and began indicating that his proficiency in the sage medical arts had increased. Additionally, he gained new skills, including the ability to perform the divine spiritual duty with the rating of S+. In addition to this, it said that he had healed 15 people out of the total required for the achievement criterion of the hidden quest titled Road to Becoming a Healer 2, which indicated that he had to heal 100 patients who were in critical condition. Afterwards, Xinyun stood up and closed the stinger case. He told Juge and Ha Rin that it's all done, but they all need to be taken to a doctor to receive further treatment, but at the very least, they won't die. Ha Rin, who seemed still worried about them, asking their clan leader what is the cause of their condition. Xinyun became serious and said that the reason that those women got into that state was the remedy, and he was assuming that Juge and Ha Rin were aware that remedies are far more addictive than opium. When Juge and Ha Rin found out that the reason for those women's agony was remedy, their jaws dropped and their eyes widened in horror. When Ha Rin asked Xinyun if they've been selling those drug-intoxicated ladies like a commodity, Xinyun responded with an affirmative nod. Ha Rin was shocked to learn that a prominent member of a chaos sect known as the Kowloon Gang had been involved in the illegal trafficking of people as well as the use of illegal narcotics. She was under the impression that this wouldn't merely be an event in the realm of martial arts, but that the government would become involved. It's possible that this major incident will be the one that finally causes the government and Muram to breach their neutrality deal. Afterwards, Juge and Ha Rin were both over themselves with rage. They conveyed to the leader of their clan the message that the occurrence could not be ignored, and that they should alert the Union of the news as quickly as they could. And in order to exterminate the Kowloon organization in a single operation, they will work along with the authorities. However, their clan leader did not respond to what they said, which prompted Ha Rin to furrow her brow and inquire as to whether there was anything further that they were unaware of. In response, Xinyun informed them that if they bring their complaint to the higher departments of the Union, it will most certainly be ignored due to the inclusive proof. Even if they report the incident to the appropriate authorities, there will be no further development of the probe in the end. Ha Rin was able to decipher what their clan leader was trying to convey, which was that the Union and the government both contain individuals who are responsible for the occurrence. When their clan had confirmed that there are perpetrators inside their government and that there is someone within the Muram Union who knew about the Kowloon group but neglected them, they were astounded to the point that their mouths dropped, and they were startled to learn that there are criminals within their government. Xinyun also asks the two of them if they recall the words he uttered just before they entered the cave, which were to the effect that once they were within, they would not be able to turn back, and that it was now their time to decide whether they would trust the Union or believe him. It seems as though Juge and Ha Rin are both uncertain about who they will place their faith in. But before Ha Rin can make a decision, she casts a mournful glance downward and asks their clan leader who among them is an insider. On the other hand, Xinyun explains to them that currently, the drugs of the Kowloon group are only distributed into two regions, the Zhejiang and Anhui. Both Juge and Ha Rin dropped their jaws in surprise regarding the Anhui. They couldn't believe what they had discovered. On the other hand, Xinyun followed his sentence by stating that because the Kowloon group has maintained control of Zhejiang for such a significant amount of time, the influence of the Union is at its lowest point in that region. However, Anhui is not like the other provinces since there are two factions that live there and act as pillars of the Union Muram. One of them is the most influential member of the 7 clans, which is also referred to as the clan with the blue sky sword. This clan is known as the Nangong clan. but to regard the Nangong clan as an insider, especially since their youngest son passed away from an opium overdose 5 years ago. He was very convinced that they are not because the Sword Saint meticulously inspects all individuals in the Nangong clan every month. On the other side, Ha Rin's forehead begins to be covered with beads of perspiration as she tries to trust her guess that since the only faction that still remains is the manhwa sect, this must mean that Master Chung Su was the one who committed the crime. However, Xin Wun believed that up until the moment that he fought Chung Su, he was uncertain as to whether of the two, the Nangong clan or the manhwa sect, was covertly interacting with the Kowloon group. He believed that this uncertainty persisted until the moment that he fought Chung Su. It was due to the fact that he had successfully concealed such information within his recollection of the other future. However, when he drove Chung Su into a corner, there was that energy that he unwittingly invoked, and even though it was very faint, he could tell that it was the force of a monster, and it was the same energy that he had previously felt from Quack Ju San, Gong Sun Chu, and Mi Wal Hua. Master Chung Su had allied himself with the Blood Sect, and as a result, he was bestowed with the power of the demon god. Moreover, Xin Wun should inquire of Zhuge and Ha Rin regarding their decision, namely whether or not they are willing to disregard the opinions of others, let go of their pointless pride, and carry out his instructions. He gave them both the assurance that they will be able to help even more people than they have up to this point. Zhuge Gun, Dang Ha Rin, will you follow me? Asked Xin Wun. On the other hand, suddenly, they get down on their knees and make a solemn oath that they will give their clan leader everything they have and follow in his footsteps. And the devils will be vanquished by them altogether. Good, utter Xin Wun. In addition, Kang makes a request for permission to borrow a little bit concerning the power of Zhuge. Kang re-enters the cave, at which point he tosses the mask that resembles the one that leader of the Blood Sect used and proclaims that it ought to be sufficient as a message that those Blood Sects only have to wait because he will destroy each and every one of them. Inside the Kowloon house, Yom Chin Seok seems to be having a meeting with his subordinate. 8 people were sitting in front of him. He told them that first, someone attacked the 3rd jail, and now even the 9th jail is completely destroyed and left. He commands his subordinates to more thoroughly fortify them because seeing how everything turned out, it must be because the culprit treated him with disdain. He was so furious and asked his subordinates if he was wrong, then abruptly released a massive force towards his subordinates. On the other hand, his subordinates were all struggling and seemed in pain after receiving the enrage of their leader through the energy that he released towards them. Afterward, Yom used his energy to lift the mask, then smashed it to pieces because they had the audacity to make fun of him while using it. In addition to this, none of his subordinates have unearthed even the faintest clue about who might be responsible. When he became angry, his eyes turned crimson, and he furrowed his forehead while clenching his fists. On the other hand, one of his subordinates quickly cut short his leader's statement, and even though he was terrified, he still said that a report just came in and indicated that Yu Xin Wun of the Beacon Commission clan have returned from Mount Tianmu on the same day that the 9th jail was attacked. It's odd that the incident took place so soon after Xin Wun got back to the office. In addition to that, he stated that he will monitor his activities, but he is unable to continue speaking, and his eyes are wide open in fear as a result of the sudden thrust that their leader gave him with his sword in the neck. When the head fell to the ground, all of the other subordinates were shocked. Several of them even dropped their jaws in disbelief. Yom turns to his subordinates and asks if there is any other who wants to spout such worthless drivel. However, their vice leader said that there were traces of someone using the highest level of the art of the fiery yang inside the 9th jail. He will track all the experts who were able to use the arts of the fiery yang who entered Zhejiang these past 10 years. From seems satisfied with the report of their vice group leader, and as he expected, the vice group leader is using his brain. But the man was not yet finished because he also told Yom that there were also traces of poison left inside the 9th jail. And it wasn't just one intruder as they expected. Yom was taken aback to find out that there were signs of poison arts, and he surmised that they must have originated from Gong Sun Chu. Yom believed that Gong Sun Chu must have been persuaded by their officer, and he had anticipated, or they may have promised him the gold from the 3rd cell. Because if it is not Chu, it is impossible for the others to know the sites of the jails that are completely hidden, and Chu is the only one who knows where they are. Yom then turned to the leader of the vice group and told him that he will lessen his load due to the fact that the traces left in 9th jail are from the flaming serpent. However, in order to make use of the flamed serpent, one must first have attained ascending level. He furrowed his brow and said, in that century, there is only one person who is able to reach that level of ascension who utilizes the art of the fiery yang. When Yom said that the perpetrator was a man who had a deeply antagonistic connection with them, The vice group leader's eyes widened and his brow furrowed. Yom named the flame terror young Wang Zhou as the person responsible for the crime. In addition, Yom went on to tell them that 30 years earlier, Wang Zhou had attained the level of ascending with the art of fiery yang when he was 50 years old. This was another piece of information that Yom shared with them. It is currently known that he engaged in a fight to the death with the entirety of the assassination squad after becoming the target of an assassination attempt after he killed the envoy of a sect that had sought to recruit him. However, it is quite certain that he has survived in anonymity and regained his abilities. Yom was right, the vice group leader stated, since if the perpetrator is a flame terror, then all of the parts of the puzzle will fit together. Additionally, he complimented Yom on his level of wisdom. However, Yom reminds his subordinates that the attack of the flame terror will continue, but now there will no longer be any carelessness. He commands his subordinates to arm the rest of the jails with plenty of items filled with freezing kai in order for them to face the flame terror once it goes there. His subordinates abruptly bow and will follow his command. In addition, Yom asks them regarding the daughter of the provincial minister jailed. In response, the vice group leader told Yom no need to worry about it because the lady was locked up in a completely unexpected place that isn't one of the hidden jails. Yom praised for the vice group leader's work. He also told them that they must keep that lady in their possession so that they can continue to maintain their control of the provincial minister jail, and they have to take more caution in her security. Furthermore, Chung Su, the clan leader of the Mount Huang sect, was waiting for someone, and he was getting annoyed since the person that he was waiting for took a long time to arrive. However, he exhaled a sigh of relief when it unexpectedly emerged in the waiting room and apologized to him for the fact that the meeting had gone on for longer than he had anticipated. Yom Chenxiak was the individual who Chung Su awaited all this time. Yom asked Chung Su for a choice, but the latter seemed uncertain. However, he stated that he would question once more if he would be able to break through the wall of transcendent level if he accepted the energy. Yom's face broke into a spontaneous grin, and he told him that he didn't have to restrict his aspirations to achieving the ascended level if he had the bravery to sacrifice everything he has. And as a result, Chung Su appears to be quivering with excitement as he tightly grasps the armrest of the chair, and thinks of the time in his past when he was a supernova who received all of the attention from both the Mount Huang sect and the Muram Union. It was said that he was someone who looked forward to becoming the youngest ascendant in the annals of the martial world. But he gritted his teeth because 1 year, 2 years, 10 years had passed, but the path to being an ascendant only went longer, and there wasn't even the tiniest chance that he would reach transcendence, much alone ascend. But he insists that there is nothing wrong with him, and that everything is simply due to the fact that the martial arts taught by the Mount Huang sect are subpar. So he furrowed his brow in frustration. After that, he inquired of Chung Su regarding whether or not he was unable to ascend due to his account in the Mount Huang sect. In response, Chung Su stated that she was aware of the situation and blamed it on the incompetent master. Chung Su also mentioned that if only that master hadn't extended his hand out to him, or if his master had been someone from Mount Hao or the Wudang, then he would have been able to effortlessly descend into the abyss. He tightened his fist and gave the appearance of being shaken with anger, but to his amazement, when he glanced at Yom, the latter was already releasing energy, and Yom asked him if he desired strength, the wall transcendent advance rank that had been preventing him from progressing for all of those years. Yom also advised him that he will be able to break through that wall, but only if he gives everything he has for that power. Afterwards, when Chung Su observed that Yom released such a large amount of energy that he wanted to have, and he imagined that if Yom had that power, it would be possible for him to possess it, Chung Su's jaw dropped. There will no longer be a requirement for an amount of patience and time that is so great that even mountains will shift, nor will there be a requirement for training that is so strenuous. And above all, he will no longer be seen as someone who is no longer relevant, and he will match right to the top position if he transcends. Additionally, the most powerful group in Anhui will no longer be the Nangong clan, but rather the Mount Huang sect. Then he remembers Xinwun, and he realizes that he has the ability to exact revenge for the humiliation that he had on the day that they assaulted the Bikun clan. Chung Su bowed down and gave the impression that he was considering something, but ultimately he came to the conclusion that he would be happy to provide anything. Yom, on the other hand, couldn't help but crack a grin upon hearing that Chung Su had finally made up his mind to join them. He just needs to lure and show Chung Su the power that he can possess when he joins them. Xinwun has gathered together all of his loyal faction leaders of the Bikun clan, including head treasure Gok. In reference to the situation of their faction leader, Jinu, he turned to Nodi for assistance. In response, Nodi shared the news that he had recently returned from Jinu's visit to the medical facility, and that, despite the severity of the wounds on Jinu's body, the patient's health was, luckily, improving. If he had sustained such wounds in a normal circumstance, he would have been on the edge of passing away. Nevertheless, the doctor stated that it is nothing short of a miracle, and that their clan head should not be concerned in any way. However, it is a relief for Xinyun, and it appears that his white wishes worked as intended. Gung-ho interjects and inquires as to whether or not there is an issue with the fact that their clan leader asked for them so urgently. Xinyun reached below his clothing and pulled out a letter, at which point he instructed his companions to first examine the document. When Gok, Nodi, and Nodi's kid saw the letter, all three of them displayed shock, which did not surprise Xinyun in the least. It came to everyone's attention that the government committee declared that because the province minister had lately been overworked as a result of the quantity of work, with the authority provided to them by their monarch, they would like to provide the commission clans of Zhejiang with the opportunity to take on the humor involved in carrying out the order of His Majesty, and they would like to do it as soon as possible. The application process is open to any and all commission clans that meet the requirements outlined above, and after all of that has been taken into account, the commission clans that satisfy those standards will be chosen to fill the supervisor posts, but only if each commission passes a fair test that has been set in advance. Each and every commission clan that adheres to the same will be required to fill out the application and send it in before the deadline. There are a total of 3 distinct sorts of government commissions that have been prepared, and additional information will only be distributed to those individuals who meet the requirements. The minister of the Zhejiang government, Kang Taeha, was the sender of the letter. On the other hand, Nodi spoke with the head of their clan as to the reason behind the Kowloon Group's approval of it because, up until that point, the Kowloon Group had monopolized all government commissions in Zhejiang. Xinyun had already predicted that it would happen, which is only natural given that this is how Yu Jun Sang Bikun's commission clan was able to establish themselves as the greatest commission clan in Zhejiang. The Kowloon Group deliberately abdicated their place on the government commission in order to promote the Hwang Rock Commission clan to the position of representative commission clan of Zhejiang. The public considers any clan that has overtaken the Kowloon Group and sees the government commission to be the representative commission clan of Zhejiang. However, he did not share all of those specifics with his comrades. On the other hand, Gun-ho observed that the letter contains a notice indicating that the deadline is 1 month following the day on which the notice is printed, and the qualifications for applying to the commission are that the clan must have more than 3 gold in their respective budget, and at least 2 transcendent martial artists living within the clan. After that, head treasurer Gok abruptly felt a headache when he realized that they needed 3 guan of gold and that there's no way that they have that much gold in their treasury at that moment. Nodi also mentioned that despite the fact that the government commissions present an excellent opportunity for them to make a comeback, they are unable to meet with any application commissions at this time. Xinyun, on the other hand, seemed to be unfazed by the possibility that they may be disqualified. Nevertheless, he did inform his fellow soldiers that the government had been generous enough to give them a month's grace, and that period of time needs to be sufficient to resolve all of their issues. The other members of his clan were shocked when all of a sudden their clan leader unleashed his sword in front of them when he pulled out his sword out of nowhere and raised it in front of them. However, their clan leader thought that he just needed 1 more transcendent martial art, and that in 1 month he would make all of them regret giving him that much time. Afterwards, when someone unexpectedly walks through the door and begins to report about their clan leader, everyone in the room turns to look at the newcomer. He introduced himself as Juti and stated that he had completed his journeys and was now back in order to carry out the directives of their clan leader. Xinyun approached him and complimented Juti on how well he looks as well as how well he had been performing his task. On the other hand, Juti gave their clan leader the report letter he had written. Xinyun opened the letter in an unexpected manner and quickly read what was written inside. When Nodi saw the paper, his son saw that his father was trembling, but he was unable to explain why. Looks like our last problem is solved, uttered Xinyun. People in Jiangxi were taken aback a couple of weeks ago when they witnessed the Bikun clan's commission, during which a large number of carts passed by them. However, some remarked that none of the carts had any goods, and others wondered whether members of the Bikun Commission were present because it appeared as though they were going to make a purchase of something like rice. But Juti disregarded them, since the command of their clan leader was the only thing on his mind at the time. Xinyun gave him the letter and instructed him to take it with him. While Xinyun was climbing Mount Tianmu, Zhu Ti was given the directive to carry out the contents of the letter. First, he had to announce to everyone in the Grain Merchant Association at the market that he planned to sell the carts, and the price was 5 gold liang. On the other hand, they couldn't believe that it was so expensive and said that they must be joking. Others said that there's a limit to how much Zhu Ti can con them, while still others said that he must be nuts since they wouldn't buy anything that wasn't even worth a single gold liang with 5 liang. Naturally, they did not go through with the purchase of those carts, and Zhu Ti was left perplexed as to why their clan leader had commanded him to do so. The second order stated that after he arrived, he was to remain in place in the pavilion of Prince Tang at approximately 11 in the morning on a daily basis. But, throughout the course of the previous 2 days, not a single individual purchased those carts. However, the leader of their clan instructed him that he must go back to his lodgings if he witnessed an elderly beggar being smacked. Even though Zhu Ti was confused, he still obeyed the order. He wondered if he would see an old beggar get slapped, and he wondered why their clan leader would say something so arbitrary given that he was not some kind of prophet. Zhu Ti continued to follow the order, but to his astonishment, he turned to his right and saw a woman who was fuming at an elderly beggar and suddenly slapped him on the face. He had been there when everything happened, and now he needs to go back to his lodging because, according to the leader of their clan, as soon as he gets back to his lodging, he needs to lock the door for 3 days and not interact with any other people. After a period of 3 days, various merchants rushed up to him with the intention of purchasing those carts. Zhu Ti was shocked when he opened the door that numerous merchants were uproarious and wanted to buy those carts. They say they will buy the carts for 5 gold liang. Another was willing to pay more than what Zhu Ti offered, and another was pleading to sell to them those carts. Zhu Ti didn't know what to do as his jaw dropped from those numerous merchants, and he didn't have any clue in what was occurred since 3 days had passed, and they are furious on him for selling those carts with such high price. But now they are willing to pay even if he offer more than 5 gold liang. Zhu Ti was speaking with an individual about the disturbance outside because those merchants who wouldn't even take a glance at the carts are now clamoring to buy them. So he questioned the person if something happened while he was resting at his accommodation. The individual stated that the situation is currently chaotic not only in Nanchang, but throughout the entirety of Jiangxi. In addition to that, the person also mentioned that there was an explosion around daybreak at Lake Poyang. Zhu Ti was startled as he had begun to sweat. Furthermore, according to this individual, all of the grain ships that had been anchored at Lake Poyang capsized and sank. The individual is questioned by Zhu Ti regarding the cause of the explosion. The individual gives his response, which is that it must be the work of the terrible Thunder Bomber. Zhu Ti was unable to believe that the fierce Thunder Bomber, not only were they the users of one of the 8 forbidden techniques in the martial world, but they were also the cause of the explosion. In addition, Zhu Ti suddenly remembered that a few days earlier, in front of the pavilion of Prince Tang, an elderly beggar had been slapped by a woman. Could it be that man would perhaps be the aggressive Thunder Bomber? Because if his idea was accurate, how could the clan leader have known? But he is unable to proceed with his train of thinking because the individual has interrupted him and said that the situation is far more dire than the explosion. It is currently impossible to travel utilizing ships since they are conducting an investigation into the likelihood of dozens of thunder bombs that are still active and violent. In addition, Zhu Ti was also informed by this individual that all of the different commercial groupings have transitioned to using land-based channels. Because of this, the merchants who are located outside of Zhu Ti's accommodations are attempting to purchase the carts with as much vigor as they can muster. When people are knocking on Zhu Ti's room asking if he is inside and asking him to please come out so they may buy his carts, they both divert their attention to the exterior of his lodging. Some people have stated that they will purchase the carts at twice the current price, while others have stated that they would purchase the carts for 13 gold of liang, and yet others have stated that they will purchase the carts for 15 gold of liang. Zhu Ti heard everything, and in that kind of situation, he can name any price he wants, and that transaction has the potential to become the greatest in the history of their commission clan. However, he looked at the instruction written by their clan leader, and because he was a warrior who follows order, he must not be shaken by personal greed. It is imperative that he carry out the third directive given to him by their clan leader. The next directive is to locate Hio Yapeng, who is the head of the Heavenly Flower Merchant Association. When Zhu Ti told him that he wanted to sell those carts to their Heavenly Flower Merchant organization, the latter was taken aback to the point that he even dropped his jaw in shock. However, all they could provide was 5 gold liang, in contrast to the other merchant who could offer a price that was 3 times higher. This left him perplexed. Juti assured him that it was acceptable at the price of 5 gold liang for each item, and that they planned to sell it at the same price as the original. It looks like Yapeng is overjoyed, so he immediately bowed to pay respect to Juti and Dail. He also expressed his gratitude to them. In addition, Yapeng stated that he will never forget the kindness that was done for him. However, Juti explained to him that the business transaction was very significant to him, and that he was simply trying to reciprocate the generosity shown to him. This was in addition to the fact that he was carrying out the directives given to him by their clan leader. On the other hand, Yapeng made a request to Juti that in the event that their clan leader ever travels to Shaanxi, he wished for Juti to inform the clan leader that he should stop by and pay a visit. After that, they sold every one of the carts, which resulted in a profit of 200 gold liang. When Juti turned to face Dail, he informed him that the clan leader's fourth directive needed to be carried out immediately. Meanwhile, a merchant was selling tea leaves, and another person who was wearing a cover head was trying to buy those leaves. But the guy seemed to be selling it at a high price, and it appears that they did not understand each other because the person who was wearing the cover head spoke a different language. Because of the cost, the individual who wore the head cover was likewise unwilling to purchase the tea leaves. However, he is unable to continue his speech because Juti interrupted and stated that he is interested in purchasing all of the tea that is sold in Nanchang. Dail gets closer to the individual who is wearing a cover head and tells him that what the merchant said to him was nonsense, and that the merchant is only inflating the price because he is not familiar with the language spoken in their place. Because Dail is fluent in the language, he will be able to assist the merchant in understanding the other individual. The merchant at first gives Dail the impression that he is offended by him, but then he comes to the conclusion that they had simply misunderstood one another because the merchant was a bit novice in speaking Persian. In addition, the person was so thankful to Dail because it was his first time to come to Nanchang from Persia, and he didn't think that there would be someone able to communicate with him. And because Dail seems nice, the person asked his name and introduced himself as Mahab Jai, and Dail also introduced himself afterward. On the other side, Juti witnessed what took place, and in his opinion, they were in a position where they needed to carry out the fourth command that their clan chief had given them. Afterwards, at this time, Juti has arrived and made the announcement that he has already carried out the directives given to them by their clan leader. When Nodi saw the 400 gold liang and the 4 gold guan, he was astounded to the point where he really dropped his mouth and his eyes opened in surprise. He couldn't believe that Juti had managed to sell all of the carts and purchase all of the tea. And that is how much money was made off of selling all of that tea to the Persian merchant. Nodi and his Gunhan were overjoyed by the sum since it was 1 guan higher than the minimum requirement of 3 guan that is necessary for them to apply for government commissions. Clan leader, you're amazing. They added. Xinyun stated that there was no need to bring it up because everybody put in a lot of effort, particularly Treasurer Gok, who must have been going through a lot of stress. On the other hand, Treasurer Gok looks embarrassed that their clan leader needs to highlight his hard work in budgeting their cash, but he was grateful that their clan head noticed it. On the other hand, Treasurer Gok seems embarrassed that their clan leader needs to acknowledge his hard work. Xinyun put his hand on Gok's shoulder and stated that he had to have been worried the whole time, but now that everything in the commission clan would go back to normal, he didn't need to be worried about it, and he could continue to manage the finances of the clan. Yes, sir, uttered Treasurer Gok. However, when Xinyun surveyed his comrades, he couldn't help but feel content. He reasoned that their commission clan would soon be in possession of absurdly large quantities of funding. And if those large-scale commissions continue to succeed on an annual basis, and if they happen to claim even one of the 3 government commissions on top of all of that, then it is not impossible for them to surpass being the greatest commission clan in Zhejiang, and move on to becoming the largest commission clan in Jiangnan. But all of a sudden, he recalled something important to share with his fellow comrades. Because of the commitment he made to the Tianmu hideout leader, he informed them that from this point forward, the commission of their clan is free to use the mountain trails of Mount Tianmu in any way that their hearts want, and they need to remember to bear in mind while they are planning their itineraries. That's all, great work. He then waved goodbye to his comrades and left them. On the other hand, they were all surprised that the words of their clan leader did not register with them right away, and Treasurer Gok, together with Nodi and his son, dropped their jaws in shock. But as soon as they realized that they were able to use the route of Mount Tianmu, they asked their clan head to elaborate on how he managed to get permission from the hideout leader to allow their commission to use those routes. But their clan chief ignored them. Afterwards, when darkness fell, Kang announced that he had at last arrived at a location that it had been a long since he had previously been. He lets loose an enormous power all of a sudden and then looks inward to see whether or not he should start. And when he casts his attention back on the location, he realizes that something has changed compared to the last time he was there. He wonders to himself if the poison causing the Kai to dissipate is the same as or different from any other lethal poison. On the other hand, it would appear that he has advanced to the level of a transcendence, which allowed him to recognize the Kai. It was possible for him to get into harm's way as a result of the formation of the Blood Mist Valley, which does greater damage according to the martial level he is currently at. But if he merely possessed inner Kai, then it would be sufficient. Kang generates energy on his palm, and then suddenly opens his arms to disperse the energy, which forms light. However, it appears that the potentially lethal poison has slightly dispersed. It is time for him to collect the depleted inner Kai that he has acquired throughout the innumerable conflicts he has fought up until this point. The vast bulk of the inner Kai of the undead that was accumulated through the utilization of Death Kai extraction has been depleted, and the inner Kai that was received from the undead through the utilization of Death Kai extraction can only be used once. Because of this, the amount of Kai that he used up during the fight was significantly larger, despite the fact that he was able to absorb Kai each time he killed one of his opponents. However, for a necromancer like Kang, there is no better way to increase his power aside from increasing the number of summons he has. But his utmost priority is securing as many summons as he can. In that way, he can be able to challenge huge factions like the Hwang Rock, Commission Clan, Mount Wang Sect, and the Kowloon Group. He notices a gold rank undead, and it seems that gold rank is the highest possible rank for the undead in Blood Mist Valley. He raises his hand and lets out a force directly at the gold rank skeleton, and when it hits it, a status window appears stating that the gold rank undead disapproves of Kang's attempt to draw Death Kai from them.